Welcome to the Six Figure Flipper Podcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with real estate investors from around the globe to empower you on your wealth building journey ahead. Here's your host, Matty A.
I'm back, baby, for another Six Figure Flipper interview. I got a badass guest today, Mr. Justin Colby. If you don't know who Justin is, you will. He is aligned with some of the biggest names in the industry, Kent Clothier, Sean Terry. He is all around just an amazing success story, going from sleeping on his couch, couch surfing, not making any money, getting crumbled in the crash in '08 to building up, in my opinion, one of the best cold calling businesses and calling really, systems and infrastructure and teams that you're going to see anywhere in the country. So today we talk a lot about those systems. We talk about lead generation, and overall, we just talk about the mindset and the mentality that you have to have in order to succeed as a real estate investor. And Justin and I connected probably about 6 months ago. We were speaking on a panel together at a real estate investment training and seminar in San Jose, California, and they flew him out. I went out there, and it was fun to be able to connect with somebody who was doing something on such a high level, and he really got my brain thinking because of how tactical he was. So you better have your pen and paper handy for this interview, because we dive into a lot of stuff that you're going to be able to utilize in your real estate investing business. And whether you're new, whether you're seasoned, there are some X's and O's in here that you can really implement today at the end of this interview. So I want to make sure you really, let that sink in and, know that this is a business that changes so fast and so rapidly, and at the same time, there are some foundational principles and activities, lead generation being one of them, strategic lead generation being one of them, that is really, really important. It's top of funnel, and it keeps your pipeline, consistently growing, so that way you're not, starving for deals. And this is one thing that he has figured out how to do really, really well. So a great interview with you guys today. Before we dive in, don't forget to get your free resource. If you are new to the podcast, just checking it out. As always, love to provide some value, give you the top 25 real estate investing reads. I'm always getting asked, what's your favorite real estate investing book? What's your, read that you're going on right now? And it's too hard to answer when there's so many great books in so many different niches of the real estate industry, because there's so many ways you can make money and so many things that you can learn to grow and scale your real estate investing business, no matter what space you're playing in, being a flipper, being a wholesaler, cash flow investor, multifamily, you name it. So top 25 real estate investing reads. You can get that at Aitchison.com, or just text the word REI reads, READS, all one word, no spaces, REI reads, to 44222. It'll ask for your email, and it'll pop the PDF right into your inbox. So that's available for you guys. Thanks for checking out the show today. Let's go ahead and dive in with Mr. Justin Colby.
Ooh, we got a treat for you guys today. This is somebody I've been paying a whole lot of attention to for quite some time. I had the honor to sit next to him. His chair was a little bit higher than mine. I don't know. He was like looking down at me, talking the whole time.
Oh, maybe it's the height difference.
Maybe it's the height difference, but this is one of the top wholesalers and investors in general, and educators in general in the real estate investing space all around the country. Someone I look up to, Mr. Justin Colby. What's up, brother?
Dude, what up? What up, man? I appreciate you having me on, man. This is, this is big. I've noticed you've been doing your thing for years as well. And so I'm glad that we were able to connect and speak on stage together and be in an event together and finally put this whole thing together, man. So thank you again for having me on.
Dude, the honor's mine. And you, and maybe I'll just speak for myself here for a second, but usually when I connect with people at conferences and, I'm always looking to learn. But then there's that personal connection where you're like, this person's really cool. Like I could definitely, not only learn what they're doing on their business side, but I just enjoy hanging out with them. You were one of those dudes. We had a beer afterwards and connect. You had to run. I think it was your dad's birthday or something like that.
It was. Yeah. I had to go run, but it was definitely cool to connect. And obviously you being up in the Bay Area, there's obviously that I'm from there. And so we hit it off immediately. So it's awesome, dude. So
for those that don't know who you are, I mean, you got an amazing podcast, The Science of Flipping. You have an amazing community. You're a part of some of, the original OGs in the education space that have been, paving the way for decades. With Sean Terry and Kent Clothier, which I know we're going to unpack a lot of that in the conversation. But Rewind a little bit for us. Tell people who you are, where you came from, how'd you get into real estate investing? Give us the gamut.
Absolutely. So I'll do my best to keep it a 30-second pitch, but it's in 2005, I went into real estate as a broker, a licensed agent in Northern California in Santa Rosa, actually, with two very, very close friends of mine who are close friends today, and started a brokerage. And back then you could do no wrong. You were printing money no matter what you did. It wasn't because I was special. It was because it was the time. But I didn't really enjoy being a realtor. So when the crash happened, I was an absolute statistic. I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost my car. The repo man was after me for a year. I had to go sleep on my buddy's couch because I couldn't afford rent because my income got shut off. I was down and out, and I was an adult at that point. I think at that point I was 2000. So I was 26, 27, and I didn't want to call mommy and say, hey, I got to come home. And I was going to figure it out. And so this was a real big gut check. And so for a year in my life, I lived on my buddy's couch. I had no income. But a close friend of mine who is my business partner still to this day, he worked at KB Homes. And so he knew his time was about to be up. So we just kept talking about, what are we going to do? How do we do this? How do we make money? And so we wanted to go into real estate investing. And this is right at the time where the YouTube videos were coming out and people could flip money or flip properties with no money, no credit, just like the beginning of the whole industry, right?
Right.
And we were like, dude, we can do this. We're all over this, right? Get into that space, and it takes us 9 months to do our first deal. So for 9 months, I make no money. I'm sleeping on a couch. We did our first deal. We made $7,000, and we had to split it between the two of us, which means we made $3,500 each. So I was still sleeping on a couch. Still sleeping on a couch. We actually completed 2 deals that year. We made $14,000 total, but that really set us off. From that point, I borrowed some money from a friend to invest in mentoring and coaching. And it was $25,000. So it was not a cheap ask. But I understood, and I know the value of mentoring, and I know the value of coaching and being around people who have done it before and are smarter. So we got into coaching. We did 6 deals the next year, 20 deals the next year, 46 deals the next year, 96 deals, so on, so on, so on. Right. And now to date, we've done over 750 deals.
Unreal.
And we're now at this point in time, the success story, but a lot of people forget the 9 months it took to get our first deal, and the year of my buddy saying, hey, can I have my $25,000 back? And me having to be like, yeah, sure. It's honest. Right. And that whole grind. And,
so you didn't get it in the mail? What are you talking about? It's coming.
Yeah, right. It's already there. It shouldn't be that. Let me call the mailman. I don't think he did get there. So, it's been an adventure, man. And we got into developing in 2012. Just because we were so good at fix and flipping, we're like, oh, we should become a developer. Well, that was a terrible mistake, right? I mean, that was a $400,000 loss. And at the end of the day, what it always comes back to is having enough experiences to be able to have the amount of success that you want to have, right? And so, now 2017, we're going to do just over 100 deals this year. We're flipping 2 right now. 85% of our business is wholesaling. We wholetail, which is a cousin of rehabbing and wholesaling, where you actually do buy it. So you'll either get a loan or you'll bring private money in or use your own capital, but you don't rehab it. And you just put it on the market because you can get 2x, 3 times the profit that you could as a wholesaler, right? And so
love it.
Things are booming, man.
That's fantastic. And now you're in good old AZ, right? Arizona?
Phoenix. Yeah. My office right now that I'm in is actually in Scottsdale. But it's easier to say Phoenix. We flip everywhere.
So I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. There's a couple things that come to mind immediately. One, dude, you're a badass. You're not only is it relatable that you didn't just jump into this and, strike gold, right? Like you put in the work, the blood, the sweat, the tears, sleeping on couches, telling people that their money's coming and it wasn't,
Right. Totally.
But there was, I look at a couple of different things in regards to, you have a really cool model, not only because you hear a lot of people say, it's not, the volume model is high overhead and high management, and it's challenging and risky. And when I look at your model, you've got it down to a science, hence your amazing podcast, right?
Exactly.
The importance of systems, team. So I really want to kind of dive into that a little bit. But first and foremost, Arizona, right? Immediately what comes to mind to me is, hey, there's a lot of players in Arizona. It's competitive out there, but you're thriving. So people that are always out there telling themselves, oh, not my market, or it's too competitive. What do you say to those people?
Dude, not only am I thriving, I'm literally business partners with one of my competitors, Sean Terry. You mentioned him earlier. We run a mastermind together, right? I, and Kent Clothier. And I mean, we've done deals together. We never, we'll call each other and be like, hey, you in on this? Okay, great. Let's just split it and not kind of bid each other up. At the end of the day, there's so many deals to be done that to be able to gain your fair share is not difficult. It's about being relentless, right? And we've done deals together. I mean, there's several big names in this market, and then that's just the name people know. There's some undercover big boys in here that no one will ever know, but they are doing just as much marketing. They're doing just as many deals that just no one knows about, right? I never view it that way. Yeah, there are people that I am trying to buy a deal and they are my competition in that, but there's so much opportunity. I'm just trying to create my niche, right? I just want my percentage of the market, because this market, specifically Phoenix, Sacramento, and that whole area is so sprawling and so big.
Right.
There's no chance. Like, I think there was 6,700 cash transactions over the last 90 days. 6,700.
Insane.
I'm trying to get 125 this year.
Right.
The year. This is in the last 90 days. So for anyone to say that there's too much competition, I go back to, in 90 days, there was 6,700 cash transactions. I just want to get my piece. So there is none of that, right? Like, at the end of the day, there's none of that. And we're friendly about it, and the real players know who the real players are.
Yeah. And it's just an abundance mindset. I mean, you go in with the closed mentality and a scarcity mindset that there's not enough, or coming from a place of lack, then that's all you're going to see. That's all you're going to get. So when I'm around you, I just feel that energy of you're always thinking big, and there's plenty to go around for everybody to eat, right?
Totally. I mean, you speak your future. That's one thing that is a lot of people don't recognize. It's not quite as popular as saying just have an abundant mindset. That's a very well-known phrase, but you speak your future. So if you say, I can't do this because of the competition, or there's too much competition here, inevitably there will be too much competition and it won't work for you. Right. Yep. And the next thing I would say to that is be very mindful of what you're thinking, because you're always listening. So your thoughts become your words, and your words become your actions. And if you're always thinking in a certain realm, there's a very good book that am I able to cuss? The book name has a cuss word in it.
Have at it, dude.
Okay. So it's called Unfuck Yourself.
Unfuck Yourself. All right.
Unfuck Yourself. Great book. It talks about how our thoughts are so overwhelmingly powerful. It can talk us in or out of anything that we want, right? So be careful of what you think, because you're always listening.
Yeah.
So even if you don't verbalize competition, but you're always telling yourself, oh man, there's so many people going to this house and I'm never going to get it, then it's going to come true, and you're not going to really press hard, and you're going to be able to use the excuse of, oh, there were so many people at the house, I didn't get it. So be very mindful, right, that you speak your future, and be careful of what you think, because you're always listening. So again, the book is called Unfuck Yourself. It's an amazing book. And it speaks to that point, right? And so I just go into everything. Like, you and I are in a mentoring space where we have clients and coaching students who we help try to get to the place where we want to be. Do we sit around saying, oh man, there's so many coaches out there, we could never do it?
No, of course not.
The space is so massive, right? So I'm not in competition with you. You're not. We're just here to help people grow.
Right.
And if you come from a genuine place, you always end up winning no matter what happens. And that's just my mentality, even in business, right? I'm genuinely here to buy your home. If, we can come to terms that make sense for both of us, let's go.
I love it. Now let's talk a little bit about your business, because you have what many people would say is a big business. I mean, anything over 25 flips a year is a massive undertaking for a lot of people.
Sure.
So talking about wholesaling, I love the concept of wholetailing, which especially in a seller's market, it makes a whole lot of sense, right?
Huge.
For a lot of different reasons. Let's talk first and foremost is what does your team look like? What does that infrastructure look like?
Yeah.
From you to the next person down below and all the way to the bottom.
So it's funny. We're actually growing quite kind of massively. We're adding 6 new people to our team starting next week. We have hired on a sales floor. So I found a manager that I hired and I said, you're tasked to go find 5 people to call and dial and cold call sellers for 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And he went and did that. So we went out and bought cubicles and laptops and dialers and Mojo and the whole thing. And so that will be up and running as of Monday next week. So that'll be awesome. But remove that because that will be a new addition to what we got going. We have 2 acquisition managers, a project manager, obviously contractors. We have plenty of them and they're team members, but they're not necessarily on my team.
Right.
And we have a disposition manager and I also have a business partner. So I am the visionary. If you've ever read the book Traction, I am the visionary and I'm able to kind of run the meetings and have the creative juice to create the income and the opportunities. My business partner is the implementer. He's the one that goes in, makes sure and has a system to it and a process to it. And the spreadsheets are looking good and analyzes the numbers to make sure that the profit margins are there, not just on a deal, but the business, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't care if we do $1.46 million, which is where we're going. If we don't keep enough percentage of that, what's the point of it, right? Because every dollar comes in, comes out.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure our profit margins are where we want them to be. And he runs that component of the business while I run the creative, the visionary, hiring, kind of that sort of side of the business.
Yep.
And then I have a personal assistant, which basically keeps my head on straight 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, you got to have one of those, man, especially with how fast we're moving, right?
We have a lot of agents that we work with, right? So, whether we're buying deals from them or they're listing them so our team is expansive, but people that actually come in and out of my office, about 7. And then, we have guys that we hire for bandit signs.
Yeah.
So again, all part of my team, but some are a little bit more peripheral than the 7 core.
Well, and I always like to ask this question because people think like 100 deals. I mean, he must have 50 people working for him. I mean, right? And you have your core team or your power team, and then you have kind of your extended family or your extended team. Totally. And I always love, just pointing, or shedding light on that for people because in order to do a massive amount of volume, you don't have to have all of this overhead and all of these people. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of those people are either low salary or 100% commission based.
100% commission. All 7 of the people that I have in my office are 100% commission.
Right. So you gotta earn your keep. And that's why I love dissecting some of the different business models that are out there because so many people just get this misconception in their head that, it's a massive undertaking. Now, I will say you obviously got amazing leadership and management skills to empower your people and keep them in place, right? Or to keep them on track with what needs to get done. But it doesn't necessarily always have to be as big as people make it out to be in their head.
Yeah, they think, for someone to have 100 deals a year, you have to have this massive organization. It's just simply not true. Now, could I do all 100 if it was just me? Maybe not. I think it would stress me out and I'd be, burning the candle at both ends and probably living a life I don't want to live. But at the same token, I'd keep every red penny. I'd have no commissions to pay out, right? So it'd all be on my money. So there's a give and take. But at the end of the day, you could very easily run a solopreneur business for quite a while. I mean, if you're not making $250,000 a year, then you shouldn't be hiring. That's my opinion. I mean, you should put all $250,000 in your pocket. That's what we do this for, right? If you're not making that kind of money, why would you go hire somebody and spend money? So, but you also don't need a huge, the way I always frame it is I'm not going to be Apple. I'm not going to have 100,000 employees. Like that's not even my intention.
Right.
At one point in my life, I wanted to have this massive real estate investing organization. I was going to be national and then I started growing and I was like, oh my God, the minutia, the headache, the frustration, it was like, why do I want to do this? Why not just be better in the space I'm in with what I got? And I think right now, truth be told, this is a great opportunity for us real estate investors. I'm finding a lot of opportunity right now, people who are kind of closing up shop because they don't want to take on the burden of running a business by themselves, but want to be a part of someone else's thing. So long and short of it is you don't need something massive, right? I mean, keep it small and keep it all. That's the way I look at it, right? The bigger you want to grow, the more money that's going to cost, the more overhead you're going to have. Truth be told, I have a nice office. I mean, I don't even have to have the office.
Right.
I don't. Now, I do it for a couple different reasons. Obviously, clients come in here and stuff like that. But there's a lot of successful, multimillionaires that don't even have an office and they run their business out of a Starbucks. And that is fine. Yeah. If I were talking to someone who's like, should I get an office? I would almost 100% of the time say, hell no. Run it out of Starbucks. Like, less overhead, keep more money. You can have your weekly meetings. It's just, you don't need it all.
I love that rule of thumb too. If if you're not breaking over $250,000, I mean, that's spot on. I mean, you can keep it all. You don't need to hire more people. You could wear the different hats. But there's one thing in that equation that you're definitely going to need to become good at. Well, a lot of things, but one thing is going to be systems, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the importance of systems and what you would say have been some of your most, now looking back, important systems, and maybe some that you were missing early on that you kind of help the new real estate entrepreneurs get on board with sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think there's one of the biggest things that you have to come to a realization is activity is not the same thing as productivity. So a lot of people, even, successful people, do a lot of activity throughout the day. Doesn't necessarily mean they're being productive. So one of the things that I would always mention, regardless of, how much money you're making or how big your business is when you're doing something, do something that matters, that generates revenue for your company, right? Like emailing, I literally wake up in the morning, I start my coffee and I start emailing because it's 6 a.m. There's nothing I can necessarily do at 6 a.m. that generates revenue.
Right.
But it is not the first thing I do when I get into the office at 9, right? I do not go to my email. I do things that actually generate revenue for my business during business hours, right? So that's a huge lesson I had to learn. I always wanted to be busy when I was starting and wanted to get going and keep doing things. I'm doing this and it felt good because I was doing, but was I actually being productive?
Right.
Was I actually helping my business grow and or create revenue? The answer is no. So understanding what you're doing and the value of what you're doing is very, very important. Secondly is systemizing your hours. Whether you work full-time, you have kids, wife, family, you need to understand there's compartmentalizing your day is going to be very important. And when it comes down to work, that's going back to step one. Make sure when you're in work hours, you're doing stuff that are productive, not just the doing shit, right?
Yep.
So that was just a small portion of what I had to learn the hard way because I was so the other side of it. Yeah. As long as I was doing something, I would do it all the time.
It's so easy to mistake movement for achievement when you're, first in the game because you're like, hey, I'm doing stuff. I'm happy to be doing things. Right. Or, so I can totally relate to that, but that don't mistake activity for productivity is such a important thing to, at least keep some attention on because it's easy to fall into that vortex of what real estate investing can suck you into.
Yeah, totally. And so the next thing that I needed personally, because I'm not the systemized guy, right? My business partner is, but personally what I had to make sure that we did, or I did specifically in my business, is I had to make sure that the growth systemization was there as well, right? And so I had to make sure I was consistent on marketing. You can't go into this space, whether you're door knocking, whether you're cold calling, direct mail, bandit signs, whatever it is, the consistency has to be there. And it doesn't mean you need to spend a huge marketing budget to do it. Just always remain consistent because this point helps the second point, which helps the first point because you'll have a consistency of incoming calls. You'll have a consistency of leads. You'll have a consistency of appointments, contracts, closings, and then you can start to predict some of your business because of how consistent you were on the front end of your business. And I'm more of the hair on fire, chicken with his head cut off, going crazy. Let's just do all the stuff. Let's throw everything against the wall. Let's just go without any system and or consistency to it. So that was something I had to get very, very comfortable with. Again, if you're door knocking, make sure every morning from 9 to 11 a.m. you're door knocking. There's nothing else taking place of that. Then if you need a cold call, you're cold calling from 11 to 2 p.m., right? And you're having a consistency of the actions that you're taking, which supports number 2, those actions need to be driving revenue into your business, right? So then I had to really systemize that. So your marketing, our business is marketing. At the end of the day, you're marketing to sellers so you can buy their home. If you think that way, the most important thing you can do is market. Again, door knock, bandit signs, direct mail, PPC, it doesn't matter. That's the most important part you can do.
Yeah.
And then once you start to do that, then the other systems of like knowing your numbers, that was like the least favorite thing I could do, because I'm not that guy. I'm not a spreadsheet guy. Like to this day, I'm like, how do you write a formula in this thing? Right? Like I am still to this day. But knowing your numbers is massively important, because it doesn't matter if you're able and willing to spend this huge marketing budget or not. If you can't start to predict when that money's starting to come back on your profit margins, you're really just going to be throwing money away. You might as well just burn your money, because you can't track anything. You don't know what you're doing right. You don't know what you're doing wrong. You're just going. And that's not fruitful at all, right? And I run 3 different masterminds with Sean Terry and Kent Clothier. One is more of the beginner. One is that medium elite, which we call, they're making 250 grand to 750 grand. You're in the elite. And then we have what's called billionaire, which is like the 7 figures plus. And there's different phases of your business. And what got you to start doing deals isn't going to get you to scaling your business. And what gets you to scaling your business isn't going to get you to living the life you want. So, grind mode and hustle mode gets you going and gets you your first paycheck, but that doesn't help you scale your business, right? So then, it continues to grow from there.
I love that you kind of brought up the concept around doing what you've done to get you to where you're at today isn't necessarily what's going to get you to that next level.
Totally.
Whether that's in your personal life, your professional life.
Dude, and fitness and health and eating,
any
diet,
category of life.
Right? I mean, that's universal, right? And so one thing entrepreneurs do is they get frustrated. I'm not growing. I'm not making more money. I'm not. And then I would sit down with them and say, okay, what are you doing? I'm doing this. Okay, how long have you been doing that for? Oh, well, this is what I did to get here. I said, well, what served you then won't serve you to get you here. Right? It's a different phase. So you got to change that. And so it's very common. I hear all the time. I'm sure you do as well. Yeah. That frustration of, I can't get over this mark. I can't get, watch what you think. Because you're listening. Watch what you say, because that then comes to reality because you're putting it out there. But also, it doesn't serve you anymore.
Yeah.
To grow, right?
Yeah.
So
and going back to the marketing real quick, because, to be able to do, let's say 100 plus deals a year, you guys are looking at and underwriting a whole lot more than that.
Totally.
So what does your guys' model look like from a lead generation perspective? You want the listeners to kind of be able to wrap their head around, what does 100 deal plus business a year look like, and how much of a marketing machine needs to be built up and operating in the background at all times.
Totally. So here's what I would say. It's all about your numbers. Remember the 4th point of the spreadsheets and knowing your numbers?
Yeah.
This is so important in that place of scale. The reason why that was last is not because it's of least importance. Truthfully, it could have been first too.
Right.
But when you're scaling your business, if you just break down, let's just say we're going to do 100 deals a year. There's 50 weeks a year. So you need to do 2 deals a week. Well, how many leads do you need to have to get 2 deals? So for us, we're converting basically 1 out of every 20. I think last week our meeting, we were at 18, but for the sake of easy numbers, for every 20 leads that comes into our world, we get a deal. So that means we need 40 leads a week. So then all you have to do is say, how much do I need to spend to get 40 leads a week? So then we say, okay, our direct mail conversion right now is 0.004. So it's less than 0.5%. Okay. So 0.004. So if 100 calls come in, 40 of them are leads. So what do we need to do to get 100 calls to come in? Well, if we need to send out 1,000 mail pieces, 100 leads would be what? 1%?
Yeah.
Well, that's not right because we're at 0.004. So now we got to increase our marketing. Okay. So we need to send out 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 to get the number. So it just comes down to math and spreadsheeting it, right? So basically we need to be able to send out, to get 40 leads, we need to send out roughly 20,000 mail pieces. And it's just the math. I'm just moving the math from how many leads get, how many mail pieces go out, callback conversion to actual leads. And then from leads, how many are we converting? That's all it comes down to.
For someone that doesn't like spreadsheets and or math, you've got this down to a science, which I just love to point that out because I personally have always told myself, I'm not a numbers guy, blah, blah, blah. I've learned to love the numbers because the numbers tell me what works, what doesn't, what needs to be doubled down on, what needs to be scrapped. And that's, I mean, the tracking piece is your scorecard of your business. I mean, you think of sports, right? If they never kept track of the score, you're not going to know who's winning, who's losing, what plays worked, what plays didn't. And so it's the same thing in business. And that's one thing I admire about you. And this was one thing, I took away from sitting up on that panel with you was how obsessed you are with tracking those numbers. And when it just becomes a numbers game, it removes the emotion, where the emotion generally is when people make mistakes.
Totally.
And it becomes procedural, where it's just an execution plan and you got to execute on it.
Yeah. So if you look at and I'm going to use basic numbers, and so I'm going to be on rough numbers. 20,000 mail pieces, what's 1%? 200? Okay. So we're getting roughly half of 1%. So that'd be 100.
Right.
So I'm right on. And I did this just out of pure, because I just know my numbers, right?
Yeah.
20,000 mail pieces a week will generally get me 100 actual calls, which will then lead me down to roughly 40 leads a week. And we're converting 1 out of every 20. And that's what I need to basically just hit the math to get 100 deals. So if I just remain consistent at that over and over and over again. Now, here's the variables, right? The economy,
right?
Time of year, summer versus holidays versus spring. Yep. There's variables. There's no doubt. But based around doing this for as many years as I have, I know for the most part, 20,000 mail pieces can get me roughly 2 deals a week.
It's fantastic.
Sometimes it's more, sometimes
yeah, right.
less, but that's where the average comes out to.
And now, do you guys have specific lists that you're mailing to, just blanketing, a zip code or a county or an entire market, or 20,000 a week, right? People might go, well, are you remailing to the same people? Are you doing this, a couple times a year? What does that whole system look like?
So what I would say is for the person starting out, one of the things I would caution anybody is don't try to be Matt. Don't try to be Justin. Don't try to be where we are today. Because this is a snapshot in time.
Right.
I started in 2007. It's 2017. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that can get me.
A lot of failures that have gone in there, right?
Right. The only reason why I'm where I am and Matt's where you are, because we have failed more than everyone else. Because we attempted more, right? So what I would caution you is don't try to say, oh my God, I can never be in this business because Justin sends out 20,000 mail. No. Start somewhere. You also don't need 2 deals a week. Right? So let's pull back the reins and realize there's other ways to get deals done. I'm going to answer your question in a second, but I just don't want people who are maybe starting out to be like,
it's a great digression because absolutely. Let's just say for the one person who's just trying to go from 0 to 1, right?
Yeah, totally. There are so many ways that you don't need to spend money right now. Like JV deals, co-wholesaling is huge. I just had a guy who lives in Texas said, hey, I know who you are. I just got a deal locked up virtually. I'm in Texas. Can you get it sold for me? Sure. I'll split it with you 50-50. I didn't need to do anything, right?
Boom.
You can go to other people and say, hey, I just built a great buyer's list. Matt, do you have any deals you haven't sold yet? Let me see if I can sell it for you. And we agree upon a split of whatever that is. That person didn't need to spend any money. You had the deal. They built a buyer's list. They moved the deal, right? And we can continue to digress. How do you build a buyer's list? I don't want to get in the weeds.
Right.
But just understand you don't need to send and have this big marketing budget. I had 0 budget. How I started was cold calling. That's why I created the product about cold calling and the power of cold calling, because it got me to where I am today. And so just know you don't need a huge budget. Now, to answer your question specifically about who we market to, I go after the property avatar. And what that means is a lot of people will go out there and teach you to go after the financially distressed people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But those deals, are slower, and there's not as much volume as I need for my business. So what I will say about that is I need the masses. So I go after a property that has been lived in for over 10 years in the zip codes I want to be in, right, where I want to be investing. I want there to be owner occ and absentee, meaning they either live in it or they don't. Maybe it's a rental. I don't care. I want both of those. I want the assessed value to be under 300,000. And the reason why, you have two exit strategies there. It could be a good rental and it could be a good flip.
Yep.
And what did I leave out? Assessed value, ownership of 2000 the year built 1995 and older. And the reason why, again, good rental property or potentially a good flip. So now I have two exit strategies and I can go for volume. So I can send 20,000 mail pieces because there's a lot of those people out there. So let's say if you're going only for tax liens, in my county, there only might be 1,100. Well, how am I going to scale a business off 1,100, right? So then I got to continue to grow that list. So the way I attack my business, not to say it's the only way, but the way I'm currently doing it is I go for a blanket approach, or what I would do is like I fish with a net versus a fishing pole. Okay, so I'm going real wide versus deep. And that allows me to also encapsulate. I do more probate deals, I would say, in this market than most people. And it's not because I market to probates, because they're in the net that I cast, right? So that allows me to get a lot of those motivated sellers without having to just target them specifically. They're in the net.
I love that and the one thing I love about your business model too is by casting such a wide net, and the criteria you set too is you're appealing to the masses. Not only are you marketing to the masses, but you're appealing to the masses from a buyer perspective, right? People who can afford to purchase a $300,000 under property is going to be a whole lot bigger of a buyer pool from your exit strategy standpoint of him, of Justin having a wholesale or a wholesale model.
Totally.
Versus if he were to jump up into the 450 or the 500 price point, now we're talking a completely different socioeconomic status and a completely different buyer with a completely different mindset and, different desires of what they want in the home and all of these different things. So I love that because it gives yours is a velocity model. Right?
Absolutely. It's a numbers game, right?
Yep. And it allows you to stay ahead of the curve too, which is really insulating your risk against any market shifts.
Right. And what I would argue is you could very well do just fine without the velocity model, and you can do the bigger, better deals. Right. So I don't want to say this is the right way. It's just the way I've built my business. Yep. You very well can build a business to say, hey, listen, I want to fish with a fishing pole. I want to go deep on these very specific leads, and I want to crush it every single time because I'll get the biggest discounts, right? Like I have a friend of mine who's in this market. He's going to make $400,000 this year. He's a solopreneur. He has no employees, no office, no anything. He doesn't spend nearly the marketing spend I spend, but he's putting $400,000 into his pocket personally after the spend, right? And it's because he goes after the very targeted seller, and he just gets bigger, fatter deals. But he would never be able to scale it. He could never get 2 of those a week, right? So I'm a velocity model. I'm I have the capital so I can fund my own deals, rehab my own deals. But then I also have a huge network of people who will buy them if I don't feel like doing it or the money's not right. So.
It is, like you said, it's not a right or a wrong model. And that's the beauty of real estate investing is there are so many different models out there where you could have yours is the shotgun approach and your buddy's more of the rifle. He's looking for those specific scope targeted deals, and both of them are awesome.
Yeah, 100%. No right or no wrong. I mean, you and I know probably a lot of very similar people. I was just with our buddy Joe McCall. His whole business around lease options. It's a beautiful model. I can't give you one reason not to run that model. It's just not the model I necessarily run. Now, do I incorporate it in my business? Sure. From time to time, we do some lease options. I do some agreement for sales. I do some land contracts. But my model is just as a whole is just different.
I love it. So, I want to point out and maybe yours is different, but there's been, the steady climb, but there's been some bumps along the way, right? There's been some turbulence. So
Totally.
I'm always curious to know how, real estate entrepreneurs face those hiccups, or how they face the adversity themselves in, the real estate investing journey. Cause you are going to get some bumps, some bruises, some scars. So how's yours been?
So I have plenty of scars, like I kind of mentioned. Listen, the reason why I'm at where I am today is because I've tried more and I've failed more than anyone else, right? And that's because every time I fail, I don't sit there and lick my wounds and complain. I get right back up and I start going. And so plenty of scars, plenty of egg on my face. I mean, again, I talked to you about the development I got into in 2012. We're developing 79 townhomes. I took a personal guarantee on $8 million. And I ended up losing $400,000 of that in selling off and saying, I'd rather lose 400 grand than to try to stay in this thing.
Yeah.
Because it literally, I would argue I lost my relationship over it at the time. And that's sucks in and of itself.
Yeah.
But there was other things, like me and my business partner were going down, right? I mean, literally, Kent came in one day and was just like, he flew in from San Diego because he could hear over the phone something was up, right? And he just had to shake us and wake us up and be like, dude, what are you guys doing? I'm like, well, we're going to make $8 million is what we're doing. Get out of here. Stop chasing money. Because we didn't want to be developers. We were chasing the dollar signs. And he was like, anytime you chase money, money runs. Do it for what you want to be doing, not because you're chasing money. So,
wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And so, but I've also had a lot of amazing successes along the way. And I've made a lot of people a lot of money, whether they've lent me money and I've made them plenty, whether they're clients of mine. And so, one thing that always, is I always want to be able to give back based around my experiences. Now, those experiences don't always have to be beautiful, right? It's not always puppy dogs and rainbows, but it's about the person that doesn't give up. You'll always achieve what you set out to achieve as long as you don't ever quit. And I truly believe that. Yeah. And it's funny because people say, well, what's your goal? I don't even know if I know it truthfully, because it's always moving. Every time I'm like, okay, my goal is this, I hit it. And I'm like, okay, got to keep pushing that down the road. And so that's the coolest part is I keep moving this goal down the road because it's like I keep achieving. Right now there are setbacks, but as long as you're okay dealing with those setbacks, you keep moving forward. So it's, depending upon what happens with the economy here in the next 2 years, who knows? But one thing I do love is the model of wholesaling and lease options, kind of that wrap deal where you lease option it or you wrap agreement for sale. That model will not go away. Because you're going to end up selling those deals to buy and hold people. Maybe you won't sell them to fix and flippers, but you'll be able to sell them to buy and hold guys. So that whole model is just a beautiful model because good times is good. Bad times is good. It's just good.
Yeah. So as we come into the tail end of the interview, and dude, this has been awesome. Amazing. I feel like, we need to crack open a few beers and continue this conversation. What is your take on, where the market's going? I mean, nationally, right? I think if you're in a major market for the most part, or even a sub-market, it's pretty good right now.
Yep.
But obviously, it's not necessarily going to be that way forever. We're getting closer to the peak than we are to the trough. So where do you see things going over, let's say, the next 18 months, and what should people be aware of or doing to insulate their business?
Yeah. So I think I would limit how much money you have in the market if you are a fix and flipper. We're flipping 2 properties. We probably have 2 million in the market right now. It's not terrible, but depending upon who you are, right? So I would limit how much money you have in the market. I would continue to stick to the cash flow game, the wholesaling, the quick turns, just keep bringing cash in your pocket because I don't have a crystal ball. I just know in the next 2 years, something's going to kind of shift.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, there's such a great rental play moving forward. My goal is over the next 10 years, is going to buy up as many rentals as possible. And so just be flexible. I think the main reason I'm still here is because I'm always been flexible. I've gotten hurt. Like I've said, I was buying homes at the auction in 2011. That's the only place we were buying them. And the hedge funds came in here and crushed us. Well, I wasn't able to buy a home for 6 months. which means when I bought my first home, it took me 3 months to sell it. I mean, 9 months in our business, we had no income coming in because the hedge funds came in. It wasn't anything we did. They just overbid everything and we couldn't buy a home. So being able to figure out, I can't have all my eggs in one basket, right? So if you're direct mail only, you need to figure out other marketing sources, bandit signs, cold calling, door knocking. You need to figure that out so you don't have all your eggs in one basket to find your deals. And always be able to provide a value. And I think if you can provide a value to the sellers, you're always going to win. Because that's what this market's going to be. The hedge funds are back here in Phoenix, by the way. I don't know if they're back up where you are.
They're still here. Invitation Homes, US Homes, Waypoint. We still got them. They're coming in.
So, for me, it's always about who has the most money. So now I've sat down with 2 of the senior vice presidents for 2 of the bigger ones here. And I said, how can I play in your world? How can I help you? And so basically now they will buy everything I can get as long as it fits in their box.
Right.
So I got very, very specific. I didn't allow them to tell me, oh, we'll just buy anything. And I was like, no. Literally your exact criteria. Like if there's a piece of dust on the floor, which makes I need to know you don't buy with a piece of dust on the floor.
Right.
Like everything.
Yep.
So being flexible, always thinking forward about what's the next play. And I'll tell you in my market, the people who actually have some money will stick around because it gives them some flexibility, right? Where they can buy a home and rehab it. They might be able to buy and rent it. They might be able to, you get a little flexibility if you're in the market and you actually save enough money that you have money when the downturn comes because it'll keep you going.
Brilliant, man. That's brilliant. I really believe that, some of the lessons you've shared today are going to empower not only the new investor, but the seasoned investor, because these are all things. I mean, I would consider myself a seasoned investor, and I'm constantly looking for ways to learn and to bulletproof my business, improve my systems. And I just love your model, love your mindset. Kind of wrapping up these last few questions. What would you say is one of your superpowers as an entrepreneur, as an individual who constantly keeps evolving and growing?
Yeah, it's funny you asked me that. So we ask all of our mastermind members the same thing. What is your superpower?
Nice.
Come up with it, right? My superpower is the visionary component, but it's the creative opportunity side. I find the opportunity. Now, a lot of times I have to send that over to my business partner because the opportunity is there. I just don't know exactly how to financially benefit from it.
Right.
But I can get into that opportunity every single time, right? So I have the ability to create opportunity, and I can do it in any industry. Now, capitalizing on it is where I might need a little bit of help, but I can get my foot in that opportunity every single time.
Well, I would definitely say you absolutely are a visionary, but you're also a connector. And, creating the opportunity usually comes from human to human connection.
Totally.
And you've definitely, been a great role model for myself, for a lot of people in the space. So I commend you for that. And, for anybody that wants to check out Justin's podcast, The Science of Flipping, on iTunes and pretty much every platform that's out there, where you interview all kinds of, brilliant real estate entrepreneurs and business minds. So be sure to check that out. And if they have any other interest in checking out your website, your mastermind groups, where can they go ahead and find you?
thescienceofflipping.com. It's actually, we just transferred over the site. So I actually give away my book. It's a real book that I sell on Amazon for $20. I sell a couple every single day, but because I'm doing your podcast, I'll give it to them. I'll give them the ebook version.
Awesome.
So if you go to thescienceofflipping.com, because it's a new website, there may or may not be a place to download it. If there's not a place to download it on the website, just email us at info@thescienceofflipping.com and we'll make sure to send you that ebook.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure to link up, anything that was talked about, discussed, mentioned in the show notes or in the show description. Kind of final 2 questions.
Yeah.
One favorite business tool, software, service that you think every either business owner or investor needs to know about and take advantage of?
God, there's so many. I mean, oh man. Let me try to think of something maybe that.
And it may not need to be revolutionary, it might be one
so
of those.
I'm a firm believer. One of the questions I get asked all the time, like we just did this Extreme Freedom event 2 weekends ago. And people ask me all the time, well, what if you were just starting out? What would you do? And I tell them the same thing every time. I would do exactly what I did. I cold called. That's all I did. I had no money, literally sleeping on a couch. And I just picked up the phone, kept calling realtors. So I would say Mojo Sells is a dialing service. Costs about $140 a month. And it'll actually give you, it provides lists for you to call. It's a matter of just making the calls. It's great because when I was calling, it was literally the cell phone one by one, boom, boom, boom. Okay. Mojo Sells, I can call 3 people at one time. And whoever picks up, it drops the other 2 and I'm on the line. So I love that service. I mean, that is just a service I feel like is killer.
Brilliant. And what was your script? What was your kind of your quick, real quick, fast script of realtor answers the phone? What were you saying to them?
I'm a local investor buying and rehabbing properties. I need to get more properties. I know you have listings. I'd love to just sit down and talk to you about my model and to see if we can work together that I can buy either your listings and or some properties that are off market.
Boom. Simple as that, right?
Yeah.
People always overthink, like, what did they say? What's this magic script that he has?
99 of them hung up on me. And one would say, I'll go have a cup of coffee with you.
And that's all you needed, right? To get your business going.
Right. And so I did that every day. So eventually, if you make 100 calls a day, which is what I did, 1 out of it every 100, I would set for the next day's meeting. So 99 people would hang up. I would want 1 meeting. 99 people hang up, 1 meeting, right? Over and over and over again until you find the right person, right?
It's beautiful, man. All right. Final question for you. Everybody's got a different definition of wealth. What is your definition of wealth?
It's just more about time. There's nothing, no money. We're not taking money with us. You know, I have cool stuff and it's kind of cool, but at the end of the day, it's meaningless. It's just about being able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. And I think you would probably hear that from most people who have reached a certain level of success is there's nothing really meaningful in life besides time, right? And if you look back, you know, the average male lives on average to be 78 in the United States. So, you know, I'm 36, so that's 42 years. Well, I sleep a third of that time.
Right.
Start doing some math. There's not a lot of waking days left on this planet. And so it's all about, am I able to live the life that I want to live? Right. So for example, it's almost 2:00. I'm going to go hit the gym and then I'm going to go grab some food and I get to live a very nice life. And so for wealth, for me, having the time to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, who I want is very important. Right. And I know you're a family man. I think that comes down to be the baseline of everything. You know, if I ask one question and it kind of gets some emotional response out of people. Mm-hmm. But if you had a week left to live and you couldn't tell anybody, what would you do with that time?
Whoa.
And then if you had a year left to live and you couldn't tell anybody, what would you do at that time? Because you couldn't just quit and sit around for a year with your family.
Yeah.
That's what the answer would be for 24 hours. What do you do in 24 hours? I would drop everything and go sit with my family. Okay. That's probably a very
common answer. Yeah.
Totally. Now all of a sudden you have a week left to live. What would you do with that time? And then if you start to really dig into that and you can't tell anybody, no one can know. It's not like, hey, everybody, I'm dying, so we're all going to hang out for a week. What are you doing with your time? Are you setting up, are you working extra hard to set up certain financial things for your family? Where are you like?
You'd be a whole lot more intentional with what you're doing. And I'm sure you'd probably be doing a whole lot different activities with your time based on those circumstances.
And then if you have a year and you can't tell anybody, but you know, now what's happening? Where are you?
Question.
Because you're not going to stop working because you have a year long, right? So you can't stop. I mean, unless you already have, you know, $1 million in the bank and whatever, sure. But you want to start to set things up. So if you start to dig into those questions, you have a day left to live. What are you going to do with your time? You have a week left and a year left and you can't tell a single soul. Start to think about what you'd be doing with that time. And then you can start to rationalize what wealth really is.
You guys heard it. Justin Colby, brother, it's always a pleasure connecting with you, man. Always adding value, always bringing the heat, the energy. And it's just always a pleasure, you know, hanging out and spending some time with you, man. So wishing you all the best moving forward. I know you're going to continue to crush it, keep raising the bar and keep setting the standard as high as possible. And I'm looking forward to staying in touch. So thanks again for pouring into us. And we'll see you on the flip side, man.
Later, dude. Thanks again.
All right, guys. Well, that was an awesome interview with Justin Colby. Told you, the guy's impressive, right? He has got not as big of a machine as you may think, but he's definitely got a well-oiled machine, and the output of that machine is getting him some amazing results. So no matter where you're at in your business, there's definitely some takeaways there that can help you become more efficient, more productive, and get the results that you're looking for to get to that next tier. I know I got some great nuggets, and he shared some cool resources. He's got all kinds of great information on his podcast, on his website. So anything that was mentioned by him or myself in the show, know that those will be in the show notes. You can check those out at mattaitchison.com. Or if you're watching this on YouTube and you like that face-to-face interaction, you like to see the guest and what they're sharing and what they're wearing and just getting more personal, we release these interviews in video each and every week on the Matt Aitchison YouTube channel. So if you're watching that right now, you can get those show notes and those links in the show description below. And be sure to subscribe so you get notified each and every week. There's all kinds of tools, tips, tutorials, case studies, all kinds of information and value on this website that can help you scale, help you become more efficient, more productive, and most importantly, just more profitable in your real estate investing business. So hit that subscribe button. If you got some great value from today's show, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Let YouTube, let everybody else know that might come across this video that it was valuable. Drop a comment below and let us know what that takeaway was. Maybe if you have a question, know that I will always circle back and answer every single question on the YouTube channel. And I appreciate you guys for doing that. As well, if you're not subscribed to the podcast in iTunes or SoundCloud or Stitcher, all the other platforms, please subscribe. And the best way that you can, I'm not charging for, this information. We want to give this out to as many people as possible so they can take that next step in their wealth building journey, in their real estate investing journey. All I ask is that if you got some great information, to leave a review in iTunes and let them know that it was worthwhile. And that gives, the algorithm a hit and lets everybody know that, this is a show, this is a podcast worth listening to. And that would mean a ton to me. If you got any questions for me, if you got a guest recommendation, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is official Matty A, so you can tweet me there, or it's the same official Matty A on Facebook and Instagram. I'm posting and I'm active on there on a daily basis, and I love connecting with people like you and keeping these conversations growing. Just like I said, I'm a student just like you guys are, so let's collaborate, let's communicate, let's take each other's businesses, lives, mindset to that next level, and the way we can do that is through interaction on our beautiful internet platforms that are available to us and at our fingertips at all times. Hey, for those that want more, actionable, more tactical, more accountability, and more kind of hand-holding the systems, the checklists, the frameworks, the models in your real estate investing business, and you really want to take that next step in your journey, the Six Figure Flipper is open and available. We have hundreds of students all around the country actively flipping, actively wholesaling, actively buying rental properties, and you can join that community, or you can learn more about what it's like to join that community and all the resources, all the value that's available to you at sixfigureflipper.com. That's the number sixfigureflipper.com, or you can just text the word Six Figure Flipper to 44222, and that'll give you more information as well. But as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Know that the guests are just going to keep coming. We got some amazing guests. The community, the network of individuals, 6, 7, even 8-figure real estate investors continues to flow in, and I'm going to keep raising that bar for you guys to keep bringing the value, bringing that heat. So until the next interview, I'll see you guys next week. I'll see you on the flip side.